So welcome. We're going to get started in just a minute. I'm Janine Gingrich. I'm the Interim Executive Director at North Carolina AIDS Action Network. It's good to see everyone. As Matt suggested, this will be a quick and painless orientation, kind of what to expect at HIV Speaks next week on June 1st. It will actually be my first HIV Speaks, so I'm not going to say much, except I do want to say, give a shout out to Deshae Coney, also on our team, and Matt for being an extraordinary planner in this situation. We're really excited about next week. Take it away, Matt, whenever you're ready.
All right, great. Here we go. So I thought that it would be good to just jump on really quickly, just kind of run through the day. And we're recording this for folks who are not able to join us tonight, just to kind of level set and get everybody ready for the day. I know it's been a couple years since we've all been in person, and navigating the General Assembly in this time can be a little bit wonky. So let's jump on in. I'm going to share my screen. All right. And sorry, letting folks in from the waiting room.
I'll keep an eye on that, Matt.
Perfect. Okay, great. So here we go. HIV Speaks on Jones Street is happening next Wednesday, and we're really excited, and it's going to be great. And let's talk through what the day is going to look like. Okay. So just kind of a quick kind of breakdown of what the schedule is like for Wednesday of next week. So the first part of the program and the day is going to be starting at the North Carolina Museum of History, which is at 5 East Edenton Street. All of this is kind of within a 2-block radius of each other. So the Ncga and the opening part at the museum are all really close to each other. They're within walking distance, like a block or two. So we will be starting at 8:30, where registration and breakfast will open at the Museum of History. I'll talk about parking later down the road, but all of this will be taking place in really close proximity. So we will have registration where you'll get your packet and your information for the day and all of your handouts and some cool swag. Then we have our opening program, just to kind of welcome folks and talk about the policies that we're going to be talking about throughout the day. And that'll be from around 9 o'clock to 10:15. Directly after that, after the opening program, we'll do a group photo. We typically do this on the stairs. And we encourage everyone to wear red if you have it. It's really great to kind of flood the General Assembly with red to kind of represent our community and raise awareness. And then from 11 to 3, you will break up in your groups and go to your various legislative meetings. As of right now, we've got about 12 scheduled, and probably we'll have a lot more as we get closer to the day. So we're really excited about that. And then we'll also have lunch during this break. Everybody will get a lunch voucher where they can go to the Ncga cafeteria to grab lunch. You just turn in your lunch voucher there. And then after we have had all of our meetings, I'm sure everybody will be tired and ready for a beveragino and some snacks. So we will be having our advocacy after hours at Gallo Pallone, which is on Wilmington Street, a couple blocks away from where all of this is taking place, from 5 to 6:30. All right, so just to kind of let you know what's going to happen at registration. So when you join us at 8:30, between 8:30 and 9, for registration, you're going to receive an individual folder, and on that folder, it's going to have your name, your specific representatives with their office numbers. It'll also have the layout of every meeting that's already been scheduled. We are not able to schedule with every single office. We reach out to every office, but not always able to schedule with every office. But so you will have your representatives' location and name on your packet. And then that way, if we don't have a meeting scheduled with them, you can still drop by their office in between your various meetings just to drop off the 1-pager and speak with their LAs. Inside your packet, you will also have 2 1-pager leave behinds. These are specifically for your representatives that you can hand out. We'll probably have extra of these, and because everybody's going to have 2 in their folder, but just to kind of make sure that we're covering our base, that every representative gets a leave behind that's going to have our policy layouts of the day. You'll also have some various policy handouts that can help you in your meetings. We'll have one on Medicaid expansion. We'll have one on PrEP and PEP access. All kinds of great information just to kind of with some talking points so that folks are prepared for these meetings with representatives to kind of lay out the policies that we're hoping to advance this year. Also in your registration packet will be your lunch voucher, as I mentioned. It's a little business card that has the HIV Speaks on Jones Street logo, and you will just take this to the Ncga cafeteria, which is in the basement of the legislative building. We'll talk about where exactly that is in just a minute. You'll grab your food, take it to the cashier. They'll ring you up and just grab your voucher from you and keep a running tally of everything. So you don't have to worry about that. You'll just hand them the voucher and you'll be good to go. And of course, we'll also have some fun swag because we love our partners who are able to provide some swag for us. I will also note that if you would like it, we are going to be doing some parking reimbursement at registration. We'll just have some cash on hand. We'll have folks sign. We'll be able to have some money to offset your parking. Unfortunately, we can't do parking validation because there's no specific parking for the Ncga or the museum, but we'll be able to at least reimburse your money for that day. All right, so now navigating the legislative visits. So the NC General Assembly is just one block from the Museum of History. When you exit out of the museum, you go straight down a pathway and run directly into the Ncga. So you'll receive your packet at registration with your scheduled visits, and in that it'll say your office locations for your representatives and your policy materials, which I already spoke about. And we also mentioned that you'll be assigned to a group with folks from your area of the state. So we've kind of got it broken up in I think it's 6 groups currently. So we've got Charlotte folks, the Triad, Chapel Hill, Durham folks, Raleigh folks, Pitt County and Eastern North Carolina, and then we have a group from Western Carolina with like Asheville West area. So those groups will be kind of together and we'll meet with their representatives together to make sure that it's not just like one person meeting one-on-one with representatives. And I will note that the Ncga is broken into 2 buildings, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. So the main building, which is the one you see in front of you, which is the one closest to the Museum of History, is the Legislative Building. There is going to be an office building behind that called the Legislative Office Building that is on Halifax Mall, which we'll go over in just a second. All right, so navigating the Ncga, this place is like a maze. It is very confusing. I get turned around every time I'm in there, but the main building that you enter first is the Legislative Building. And on the packet, if you see office numbers with 4 digits, that is the Legislative Building, which is the main building. That's the big square directly straight shot from the museum. This is where the lunch will be. So there are a couple of elevators that will take you down to the basement. And from there, you will see the cafeteria where you can grab your food. If you notice, there are kind of 4 quadrants for the Legislative Building. So as you enter from, this is where the big arrow right here, where it says main entrance, is the Jones Street, which is the area that you'll enter from the museum. You'll enter through here, and to your right will be the 1000 court. So any room number that's 10, followed by 2 other numbers will be in here. The 1100 court is directly behind that. You'll go to this little hall, and there's the 1100 court, then the back entrance, and then 1200 court, 1300 court. So we will have someone stationed from our team in the 1000 court the entire day. That is where you see the red flag. So the main entrance and directly to your right. We will have someone from North Carolina AIDS Action Network in that area at some table throughout the day. So that if you have any questions, you need any leave behinds, anything comes up, just hop over to the 1000 court and someone from our team will be there to help you in whatever way you need. All right, so as you can see in this picture, the Legislative Building is the one in the very front with 2 flags. The Legislative Office Building is right behind it. It's this gray kind of building that is to the back left of the Ncga main Legislative Building. You can get to that through the back entrance of the building, and then you enter directly into the gray building from the sidewalk. Any number that has a 3-digit will be in the Legislative Office Building or the gray building. So 4 digits is the Legislative Building, the front building. 3 digits is the Legislative Office Building, the back building. And it's, as I said, it's kind of in between the 1100 and 1200 court. That's where the exit is. And I will note that when you enter the legislative office building, it's a little bit confusing because you enter on the 3rd floor. So if you have a 300 office, you'll stay on that floor, and then 4 or 5 will actually be just 1 or 2 floors above that. So they like to keep it as confusing as possible to make it really hard to navigate, but those are where your main meetings will be throughout the day. So, all right, I will note that upon entering both the legislative building and the legislative office building, you'll have to go through metal detectors. You'll also have to send all of your belongings through a conveyor belt for x-ray screening. You will have to take all electronics out of your bag, or I think anything bigger than like a e-reader will have to come out of your bag and go in a tray, kind of like you do at the airport. And then you'll also have to empty your pockets before you go through a metal detector. I will definitely note that this process can get a little bit backed up with people coming and going. I think especially now that the General Assembly is in session, we'll see a lot more folks who are hosting advocacy days. Luckily, I think that we might be the only one next Wednesday. I've heard that it's mostly Tuesdays that advocacy days are happening. So I'm hoping that it'll just be us and we won't have too much backup. But it does get a little bit backed up with folks having to go through the metal detectors and have their bags run through the machines. So make sure that you give yourself plenty of time in between your meetings to get from one place to another, especially if you're switching between buildings. And unfortunately, every time you go in and out of a building, you're going to have to do this. It's really frustrating that you can't just do it one time and kind of be set. You'll have to do it every time that you go in and out of the building, which is a little bit frustrating, but we will just do what we got to do. Did want to kind of fly through our kind of advocacy meeting roles for folks who have been a part of our advocacy and action trainings. Whenever you break up with your group or break up into your groups to go and have your legislative meetings, we kind of like to do a blueprint of how the meeting will go so that it'll kind of go smoothly. If anything goes off course, you can redirect the conversation and make sure that you stay on topic. So the 5 roles that we kind of break out are introducer, so somebody who's just going to generally introduce the group, talk and introduce what you're going to be talking about. This person can also kind of wrangle the conversation if it starts going astray, because legislators like to kind of overtake the conversation sometimes and direct it in how they want to speak about it. And so the introducer can kind of regather everything and put it back on topic. It's always good to have a storyteller. I always consider this kind of like the meat and potatoes of your conversation, to tie what you're talking about to personal lived experience. That's the entire reason that we do these advocacy days, is to bring our stories to our representatives and kind of put a face to a cause. It makes it so much more personal and really helps us to advance policy, which is because we're showing up as our community about real impact that we have. So unfortunately, with a lot of representatives, the story is not all that they need. They really like those numbers and understanding why this is important from either a fiscal reason or from a demographic or number reason. So it's important to have somebody who is able to provide some background facts for whatever the storyteller talks about and whatever our policy asks are. And that's why we will have our handouts throughout the packet, so that you can kind of pull any numbers or facts and figures that you may need to help guide your story and really make your meeting effective. It's also important to have someone who's going to be able to take notes. We're going to create some recurring Google Forms where every time you have a meeting, you'll be able to just kind of type in how the meeting went. If there were any questions that you weren't able to answer from the representative, if there were any follow-up that we needed to do, if it was really great, you can put information there so that we can go and follow up. It's a really good way for us to kind of establish new relationships with representatives that we haven't in the past. So this is a really important role, and we'll have some paper copies as well for folks who may not be super comfortable using a phone for a Google form. And then the last one is, we really like to have a social media presence for folks who are not able to join us on the day. So we have our social media magician who can kind of tweet about the day, take pictures of representatives and tag us. We can use hashtags and stuff. And a lot of representatives have their own social media accounts specifically for their legislative account. So it's really great to tag folks and really raise some awareness that way, because we're a social media hungry generation. And I will note, this role is best suited for someone who actually enjoys and understands social media. So if you are not that person, that's okay. I am not that person. I am absolutely terrible whenever I am tasked with tweeting or using our Instagram. So if this is not your strongest suit, that's totally okay. You can find a role somewhere else, because everyone has a role in advocacy. All right. few little reminders as you go into these meetings. So legislative schedules can change really quickly, and representatives often get pulled into meetings on super short notice. So that means that you may not be able to meet with your representative at the time that your meeting is scheduled. Just try and remain flexible. I know this is really frustrating whenever folks are trying to have meetings with specific legislators when the actual scheduled meetings are kind of limited. Just be flexible. Even if you have a scheduled meeting that gets dropped, or you don't have a scheduled meeting at all and it just has their office number, it's really still important to drop by and leave a one-pager with the legislative assistants. They're a great contact to make, and they can really pass along that information. So you can still drop by, speak with a legislative assistant, even talk about the cause as to what you're talking about, and kind of highlight your policy ask, because they take in everything for the representative when they're not in office and can rally that information right back to them. And I think one of the most important things to note is that representatives work for the people. We have the right to be there and have these conversations. They are elected by us, and you have the right to lead these conversations, and that you are the subject matter expert. They are not for this. So you are able to take control of these conversations and really advocate for the things that matter most to us. I will note that as far as parking goes, as I mentioned, there is unfortunately no validated spots or lots for these two locations, but the two areas that are the gold stars are the two that are closest to both the Ncga and the Museum of History. One is on Edenton Street. It's a straight shot to the entrance of where the red flag is. That's the museum. And the other one is on Wilmington Street. And so they're both within a block of the Museum of History, and then ultimately a block of the Ncga as well. So those are the best places to park that are lots that you can kind of just keep your car there. There is street parking available throughout downtown Raleigh, but I will note that with the way that paid parking on the street goes, you cannot refresh your parking. So you would have to completely move your car to a different location. That is totally fine if you would rather do that, but you can't refresh the same spot that you're in, which, that super annoying. It's so they can give you more tickets. All of this information as far as location and addresses, I'm going to send out in emails following up after this as we kind of lead up to the day, but did want to note for folks that these are probably the two best places. So the Green Street parking deck, which I think is actually attached to the Science Museum, and the Wilmington Street, which is an outdoor lot, which normally fills up quicker. So Green Street might be your best bet. As we mentioned, advocacy after hours is going to be taking place at Gallo Pelon Mescaleria. It is on Wilmington Street, just a couple blocks from where everything is taking place. This is a place where you could probably relocate to park on the street. You might have to pay for an hour parking, but after 6 o'clock, parking is free in downtown Raleigh. And I will note that Gallo Pelon is the rooftop bar that is on top of Centro Restaurant in downtown. So you'll go in and then go straight up the stairs, and that'll take you to the bar and outdoor upstairs patio area of Gallo, which we're really excited to have. So we'll have some appetizers, we'll have some beverage tickets that you can use, and we can kind of debrief and relax after a busy day of legislative legislative meetings. My brain is mush, as you can tell. So I will stop there and we'll take some time for questions. This is my email, which you will be getting all kinds of emails from me between now and Wednesday, and my direct cell phone number. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, drop me a text message. Text is probably the best way to get in contact with me quickly. I am terrible at answering my phone if I don't recognize the number. So drop me a text message, and I also will answer that a little bit quicker than email. So there is that. I am going to stop my share from there and just take a second and see if anyone has any quick questions.
Hey, Matt, it's Carolyn. I wondered if you might reinforce your COVID suggestions or that you sent out.
Yeah, thank you for that. I totally meant to put that in the presentation and completely forgot. We are asking that everyone please try and get themselves tested within the 24 to 48 hour window prior. I know this might not be possible for everyone, but really encourage folks as best they can to get tested beforehand. Our friends at Triangle Empowerment Center will have rapid tests available on site, but I think they will only have a limited number, and it also takes that 15-minute window to where it's a little bit of a waiting period. So I really suggest, if you can, really try and get tested either Monday or Tuesday to get that information. We don't want, because we have not advertised this leading up, we're not going to be policing folks for this, but we are going to be using a trust system that folks are going to be able to do that and receive a negative test before attending. I know that I am also going to be wearing a mask anytime that I am indoors. We'll strongly encourage that. I know that COVID seems to be spreading pretty quickly within the community. I've heard of a lot of folks that are testing positive. So would encourage mask use. We will have masks at our registration table. Again, we will not be policing this. It is up to the individual, but would really encourage it as a public health organization. And for folks who are immunocompromised, want to ensure that we are keeping folks as safe as possible. So we'll really encourage mask use when indoors. Thank you for raising that, Carolyn. I completely forgot to mention that and meant to. Anna, I see your hand is up. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the sort of dress code is. I mean, I know you said you prefer we wear red, but should we be a little bit dressed up or just in t-shirts, or what's the deal?
So what we have typically told folks is wear whatever you are most comfortable in. I think you will see a lot of folks around the General Assembly in kind of like a business casual attire or business attire. That's probably how I will wind up dressing. But wear whatever you are most comfortable in is what we tell folks. But you will most likely see kind of that business casual business look throughout the General Assembly.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Let me look at the chat. Didn't see anything
in the chat. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize Christina Delicay on our staff who joined too. She's our policy and comms manager. We can't wait to have all of us together with you all next week. I think you've covered a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, if all hearts and minds are clear, as they say in the Southern Baptist Church, I will stop there. I will go ahead and stop the recording, which we will send out to folks, which I don't know how to do. Stop recording.